So just so you can follow this, okay, it starts on November 10th. Obama warns him about Flynn. They don't give a rat's ass. They take over the White House on the 20th. 6 days later, Sally Yates calls Don McGahn, the counsel at the White House, to inform him that your national security advisor has taken part in some conduct that is blackmailable by the Russians. And it's not a good idea to have him as your national security advisor. I need to come over and show you something. May I come to the White House? Sure, come on over. She goes over to the White House. She shows them evidence of some underlying conduct that would make him blackmailable. She tells them that he's lying to the American people. He's lying, obviously, to Mike Pence, who is out on the TV saying that Mike Flynn has never discussed sanctions with the Russians or any such thing. The next morning, he calls her back and he says, can you come back to the White House? I have some more questions for you. She says, sure. She goes back to the White House. And what is their question? Their question is, why do you care if one person in the White House is lying to another person in the White House? What do you care if Michael Flynn is lying to Mike Pence? That is unbelievable. She says, well, I care because there are criminal statutes involved here, plural. And I need to go over them with you so that you're very clear who your national security advisor is and what he is facing with regard to an FBI investigation. Then she shows him, they go over all the criminal statutes. Then the next day he calls her up and says, I want to see your evidence. She says, okay, let me arrange it. Let me get, all the logistics in order. And you can come up here. We need to discuss this in a secure location. So there's some logistics involved because this is classified information. And I will arrange it. And then he calls Monday morning and she says, yes, we can do that. Why don't you call me back in the afternoon and we'll fix up, we'll get your schedule and we'll get you over here. And then that afternoon, she's fired. Of course, the Republicans in this hearing today are only interested in who leaked the information. How did it end up in the Washington Post? And, James Clapper is there, the former, head of the CIA, and Sally Yates is there, the former acting Attorney General of the United States. And they don't know how it ended up in the Washington Post. But that's all the Republicans are interested in. They're not interested in his behavior. They don't have any questions about what is his underlying conduct. Was it something of a physical nature? Did it have to do with remuneration? All I can tell you is that while all this is going on January 29th, while all this is being planned so she could show the evidence to Don McGahn at the White House, Trump signs an executive order elevating Steve Bannon to the National Security Council, putting him in the same room with Michael Flynn. He adds him, and he downgrades the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff and the director of national intelligence that nobody could understand. Like, why was he doing this? Obviously, he was closing the circle. He didn't want people that would say anything to him about Flynn's Flynn's provable compromised position that the Russians knew about. I'll also tell you, on the 28th, the same day she's trying to arrange for Don McGahn to come to a SCIF at the Department of Justice, a secure location at the Department of Justice, to look at all the evidence against Flynn. Flynn takes part in a phone call where Trump is on the phone and Vladimir Putin, the counterpart to Trump, is on the phone. The counterpart to Flynn is on the phone, and Trump and Flynn were sitting in the Oval Office and joined by Vice President Pence, Reince Priebus, the press secretary, Sean Spicer, and Steve Bannon. So she's arranging to show the White House counsel all this evidence, and they're still on the phone talking to Russia. Knowing there's a live issue with this guy, Flynn, they still include him in the meeting with Pence, with Bannon, with Flynn, and Donald Trump. They're all on the phone talking to somebody in Russia. And then the next day, Trump changes who's in the National Security Advisor, who's going to be on the National Security Council, and he puts Steve Bannon in there. And then on the 30th, she's fired as acting attorney general in a very strongly worded White House statement that she had betrayed the administration because she refused to defend what she believed to be an unconstitutional Muslim ban. Now, I'll tell you, John Cornyn tried to nail her. There's something wrong with you. How could you overrule the Office of Legal Counsel in the White House? The Office of Legal Counsel in the White House, which is the President's counsel, again, it's dumb again, says that there's nothing wrong with this Muslim ban. It's perfectly legal, and there's no reason why the Department of Justice shouldn't go into the court and defend it. She says, I'm sorry, I have to note, she said to Cornyn, I have to tell the Office of Legal Counsel that they were wrong. And he said, how dare you tell the White House counsel he's wrong? I know you're a 27-year Department of Justice veteran, but what could you possibly know?